So I realized I don't have a video on this channel about documentary hypothesis. I mentioned something slightly about it in the Julia Reiber hit commented something about this. So I figured I should do a video on it. Now, documentary hypothesis is that there's, better if I turn this off. See how this is all yellow? It says that there's different writers and that spliced different writers together. See, the creation story stops up here, then you have a transitional sentence, then you have the other creation story. And this is something that people notice very early on, and Julius Wellhausen is the proponent of the modern one, or the fleshed out version, but people have been noticing this throughout the ages because of the different authors. The funny thing is when you put this stuff all together, it stacks up quite nicely. As of two different readings, and I actually spliced this together. I was making a copy of this for somebody else and going through with highlighters. And then around the time of Abraham, we get, or the story of Abraham, we get another writer telling a slightly different version of this, and it's divided between the northern view and the southern view. Right. You can get an intersplicing of stories. We get two flood stories, two creation stories, two flood stories, two stories for a lot of these things. So you have pink being J, Yahweh's, yellow being P, the priestly text, and green being E text, which is Eloh's text, or northern priestly text. And then you get, at the end, you get this book of Deuteronomy. And you see it even cuts through Genesis, or Exodus as well, of these different stories, these different accounts being written from different perspectives. And you, the orange is for redactor, the redactor that put these things. And Deuteronomy has a completely different writer, which usually gets identified with Jeremiah. I would agree. Richard Elliott Friedman, who wrote the Bible, which is probably the best book, most concise, good book to read on this. Initially in his first edition says it's Ezra that was the redactor, and then puts it at Jeremiah. I would say Ezra was the redactor. I don't think I agree with his later conclusion that it's Jeremiah, although it could be, it could have been. Because then how do you square redactor with Deuteronomy? I want to emphasize something on this. Oh yeah, I was trying to do this Bible for basically with another text, with another Bible to send to somebody because they requested it. And I think I'm on my third or fourth one because I screwed up so badly. Even in this one, the one I'm doing now, I screwed it up. So I don't know which. I think I might just send them all 3 copies that I've been trying to do. Maybe it's 4 now. I don't know. But in no way do I believe that these are lies made up, right? And I mean, I can go into more detail on documentary hypothesis because in P text and E text, they won't mention the name Yahweh until the burning bush, and they don't recognize that there's any laws or even sacrifices. That why would you know about the kosher laws if it was Moses that gave them, and nobody knew about it before? Why would you know about these laws when they weren't given yet? J text, or Yahweh's text, has the person not using Yahweh as what came out of the burning bush, but just saying Yahweh, 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 Yahweh. And it doesn't have a burning bush incident. And it's a very anthropomorphic God, the God of El is the God that's above everything, that's kind of behind the scenes moving this, well, beyond, where as the Yahweh's text will, or J text will just Yahweh and assume that people know what's being talked about, or that they follow the kosher laws, or that they do this or do that. And it's like, what are you talking? And it was it's very strange. I go with the E interpretation of. I think that guy had it on the money. As for the theology of it all, the way of looking at it all, and that could have been one of the Moshite priests that gets slaughtered. And I believe you can see this dichotomy running through even the history of it, from Joshua to the end of Kings. And then we have a second history also tacked onto that, and we have Psalms from different places. But in no way do I believe that any of this was forged. I think these were accurate accounts depicting what happened at Sinai or in Egypt or even before. So I'm not saying that it didn't happen, that Moses didn't exist. But even in the harshest of medieval times, if you were a Catholic and you said, I don't think Moses wrote the 5 books of Moses, it wasn't a heresy. That was something always debated. Many people said, well, this wasn't written by Moses. And why does it need to be? Doesn't need to be written by Moses for this stuff to happen, or for God to have guided the children of Israel out of Egypt, or anything like that. And not all the time does the God El, or even the priestly God, remain so far removed. And the El of the lowest text intercedes in dreams, and there's angels and stuff, and he's right there, but it's not anthropomorphic. Whereas the God of P doesn't really have a concept of mercy; it's just all justice, and you just need to do these rituals, and then God will has this kind of eternal code with mankind. In the Yahist or J text, you get kind of a God that's immediately there, one that you can argue with, one that you can change the mind of. And I believe this is all needed, that this is all the beauty when it got put together as the Torah, that it just becomes a magnificent text, that it's much richer, much fuller, much more beautiful, and delve into it in a deeper way. And so when some people say, oh, well, it's they're surprised that, but how can you believe in documentary hypothesis and still believe in God or strange things? And I'm like, well, no. Or I still believe Moses existed and this stuff went down the way it did. I don't see a contradiction with that. I don't think Friedman does either. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on this. On my last channel, channel before that, I did a reading of the 2 different Noah stories. So I think I might do that on this one. So there it is. But yeah, the division between the theology of the South and theology of the North was great, and it says it in the Bible. I mean, we see that there, and funny enough, archaeology affirms that. But again, these were it used to be Israel at one point, or the tribes known as Israel, and then it gets consolidated under 2 kings, and it breaks away right after Solomon dies, and it becomes Judah in the south, Israel in the north. All right, peace to you. May God save Serbia, Syria, and Ireland.